It's been over 10 years since the release of Kingdom Hearts 1.5 HD Remix and the first of the Kingdom Hearts HD collections. In that time, we've gotten the release of the 2.5 and 2.8 HD Remix and the all-in-one collection. These numerous collections featured the games either being scaled up from the previous versions, being remade from the ground up, turned into various cutscene movies, and more. Naturally, this has sparked a discussion among fans about which of the games that didn't receive a full remake actually deserved one, and if so, which ones would that be? I want to start by taking a look at the 358 Days Over 2 and ReCoded cutscenes and why they never received a full remake like their closest counterparts, Rechain of Memories and Dream Drop Distance. As you may or may not be aware of, Kingdom Hearts 358 Days Over 2 and ReCoded were both originally released for the Nintendo DS in 2009 and 2010 respectively. Once it was revealed that the series was receiving an HD collection in the form of 1.5, with Days being included in the lineup, people were surprised to discover that it would only be in the form of a movie made up of strung together cutscenes from the original game and some newly created scenes based on the low-res cutscenes spread throughout the game. ReCoded would follow a similar release to many fans' disappointment. Aside from the hope of playing an updated remake of those handheld titles, the disappointment wasn't as surprising as you might think. This is mostly due to the precedent set by the release of Rechain of Memories. Originally released for the Game Boy Advance, the game was later completely recreated for the PlayStation 2 to follow alongside the release of Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix in Japan. Many people wondered why not take the time to do the same for Days and later ReCoded for the HD collections when they were in a similar situation. This became a bigger topic once the release of 2.8 revealed that Square added Dream Drop Distance to the lineup. To my knowledge, Square has never released an official reason for not creating a full remake for these two games. However, most fans were able to come up with a consensus on what likely happened, and that would be time and budget constraints. At the time, the team was deeply in the woods in their creation of Kingdom Hearts 3, which had a rocky development start due to issues with the Luminous engine and eventually making the switch over to Unreal Engine 4. If they had taken the time to remake these games, and they would have had to remake them from the ground up considering they were originally Nintendo DS games, it most likely would have slowed the development for the rest of the series considerably. But now that it's been some time since Kingdom Hearts 3's release, the question many people are starting to ask is, should Square go back and take the time to remake these two games? Personally, I'm a bit split on the question as I can see the pros and cons for both sides of the argument. For Days specifically, while Square did an amazing job of recreating many of the original scenes from the DS game, many fans noticed that they left out certain scenes or moments that were important to the flow of the story, and without it there tended to be moments where it felt unnatural due to the missing context or information. The moment most fans point to as an example of this is towards the end of the game. In the original game, Sykes is waiting for Roxas and forces a confrontation to stop him from leaving. It's an intense battle and it's nowhere to be found in the cutscene movie, not even a hint of it. If you hadn't played the original DS game and only watched the movie, you would think he was just allowed to walk out of the castle with no problem whatsoever. It also speaks to the second issue that people notice for this title, and that would be the lack of action in the movie. Without the gameplay to make up for this, it's hard to not be aware of it when we do get hints of it. Square even realized that this was an issue because sometime after the collection had been released, they pushed a free DLC out that contained an updated scene for Roxas' confrontation with Xion. In the original collection, on day 357, it cuts from Xion telling Roxas she needed to make him a part of her, to Xion collapsing and Roxas losing his memory of her in real time. It was a rather jarring cut, so they recreated the last phase of her boss fight in order to make the scene make more sense. I wish the same had been done for the Sykes confrontation, and I'm not sure why they didn't when they did it for this one, when it also gives their fight in Kingdom Hearts 3 more weight as it's technically a rematch. If we look at the gameplay, it would be interesting to see how they could possibly translate the missions and panel systems onto a more modern console, but unfortunately, unless they did a massive overhaul of it, I don't see it turning out too well, simply due to the fact that the gameplay was never really the highlight of this particular title. Interestingly enough, ReCoded has the exact opposite situation. The gameplay for ReCoded, which is already a remake of the mobile title Coded, is what this game is mainly remembered for, and is the reason most cite when bringing up this title for a remake. In between the release of 1.5 and 2.5, Square seemed to take the critique of the Days movie to heart, as the ReCoded cutscene movie has much better pacing and much more action than Days, which made for a more enjoyable watch. Ultimately, I doubt Square will ever go any further than they have with these titles simply due to the fact that they're focusing on the next phase of the games. There is one title I think Square would spend the time and energy creating a remake of some kind for, however. In 2012, the browser game Kingdom Hearts Chi released exclusively in Japan, depicting the events that led up to the Keyblade War. A mobile version of this game named Unchained Key was released in September 2015, while the browser version was eventually shut down in 2016. It would later undergo another name change in 2017 to Union Cross. Following that, a tangential game would be added near the end of the game's lifespan in 2020 titled Dark Road, which told the story of a young Xehanort as he first began his tutelage as a Keyblade wielder. During the lead up to Kingdom Hearts 3, fans anticipated that the events of the mobile game would be necessary to understand the events of the upcoming title. Luckily, that turned out to not necessarily be the case, as outside of one or two cutscenes, the most you needed to know could be found in the back cover cutscenes released in the 2.8 HD collection. However, once Kingdom Hearts 3 came and went, Union Cross and eventually Dark Road continued on. The more of the story we saw, the more people realized that this game was ultimately setting up the next saga for the series now that Xehanort had been defeated, and the initial worry of the story of the mobile games being necessary to understand what was happening came back almost tenfold. Aside from the fact that Union Cross was a mobile game, there were and still are several very valid issues the fans have taken with this particular title, and why I personally feel that it deserves a remake of some kind more than any other game in the series. The first and most important point is that the game reached its end-of-life service in 2021, meaning that it no longer receives any story or gaming updates. Once this happened, an offline version was released so you could still see the in-game records and stats you had if you had ever played, as well as watch all of the Union Cross cutscenes and play Dark Road. However, even this became nearly impossible to do as the app was delisted from every app store in August of 2024. Unless you already had it installed and refused to delete it, there is no way to experience the story outside of the cutscenes posted to YouTube and fandubs. With how important the story is to the upcoming games, it's not really a wonder that fans were concerned about this. I spoke about this in my previous video, but part of the reason the series has the reputation of being confusing is because for a large amount of time, the games were all separated on multiple platforms that not everyone had access to for a variety of reasons. For many, it seems that the series is falling back into the same pitfall it set for itself, with the setup for the future installments being unavailable to the public at large. If not for fan efforts, it would be completely impossible for someone to experience the original story of Union Cross at this time. The next point is a little less pressing as the game is no longer available to play, but the presentation and the gameplay played a major role in the difficulty people had with experiencing the story. Before the days of Genshin, Wuthering Waves, and the like, Union Cross did not have the fidelity that most fans were used to with Kingdom Hearts games, as it came out before technology could really handle what we're used to now when it comes to mobile gaming graphics. Square used this to incorporate a storybook art style for the game, as it was set in the era referred to as the Age of Fairy Tales. With the gameplay being turn-based with gacha elements and a story that was updated infrequently, it was difficult for people to not only follow the story but also want to play it. I brought it up previously, but I feel I would be a bit remiss if I didn't mention some of the fan works in a story about remasters and remakes for this series. Over the years, many fans have attempted to remake some of the games in one form or another, whether that be mods to recreate certain scenes or moments, or full-on remakes using a combination of old and self-created assets. There are a lot of incredible works by fans. They give a bit of justification for all the discussion around potential remakes. I think with the cancellation of Missing Link, the need for a remake of at least Union Cross is more necessary than it was before. But what do you all think? Do we need a remake of Days and ReCoded? And do you think Square is going to come up with a new way for people to have access to the story of Union Cross? Let me know in the comments. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.